So just because Brett came up, Alan Cockrell told us that he's playing through a wrist injury, through a lot of, and he kind of does have that personality where he's going to play. Does that, I don't know, bother you that it turns out you were playing a guy who maybe wasn't, there maybe was an explanation for why his numbers dipped so much, and he maybe wasn't being...
You know, he actually got hit in the month of April. So this was something that we dealt with all year long. And if you remember his July, it was, I mean, it's an MVP type of month. So sometimes it's hard to predict, you know, was it fatigue? Was it the wrist? Was it he just got in a bad way or bad? So, you know, you kind of look at the body of work and you don't get too caught up in, you know, if a guy has a bad week period or bad 2-week period, you figure that they're going to bounce out. Everyone plays beat up. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's what happens in our game because, I mean, they talk about it being a grind, and you hope that players are honest enough with you that when it becomes too much, they come to you. But he never felt it was too much, and we didn't either.
Andrew.
Joe, you were very active in the Players Association. What do you think about the idea that you could be found, you know, not liable according to, you know, legal process, but then be suspended, you know, in Major League Baseball as, you know, someone who was involved in the Players Association?
Well, I think there's an expectation of conduct and how you're supposed to handle situations that maybe in the court of law is different than the court of Major League Baseball's opinion or the Players Association's opinion or the public's opinion. So I understand that. I think we have a responsibility as athletes on the way we present ourselves on and off the field. And I'm okay with that.
Raquel.
Joe, the conference opened with someone stating that there were no big stories to talk about. I tend to disagree a little bit as a victim of domestic violence. I thank you for your sincere answers regarding the issues.
Well, thank you.
Now, may I ask my question?
Yeah.
And aloha from the great state of Hawaii. As the Yankees get ready to welcome a new season, a new crop of future legends in the minor leagues.
We sure hope.
Well, you had a bunch of them a couple of years ago. Can you give a shout out to the contributions of your minor league players to the 2015 season?
Well, I think we got contributions from all over the place. You know, I'm not sure where you start. You can start with, let's start with the outfield, Slade and Mason Williams. I thought both did a very good job. And, you know, I think it's important, you know, and I will bring it up tomorrow, that you might be a non-roster player. You may be in Double-A and you get sent down, but you still have a chance to contribute. Don't be surprised, as we saw a number of players get called up. You look at the pitchers that came up, the Severinos, the Rumbelows, the Goodies, the Pazzos. Cotham came up and helped us. Pinder was up a number of times. And, you know, that wasn't an easy job for the relievers because, and we were honest with them, and I told them what was going to happen, and I will reiterate that again because it could possibly happen this year, that it's important that we keep fresh arms and that you're going to have to, you might go up and down, but be the guy that when we make another move is throwing well. You know, Diego Moreno, think about the job that he did in that game in Texas. And he was a non-roster player that came up and did very well. Lindgren, another non-roster player, got his chance. So, I mean, there were a number of players that came up and helped us. And Rob Refsnyder, I mean, he started the playoff game. He came up for a brief time in July and came up in the month of September and didn't get his chance really until the last week and was ready to go and played well. So I give him a lot of credit. So anything can happen. If you're in uniform, anything can happen. So give everything you got.
Wally and Billy.
Joe, my apologies. We're going to go back to Chapman for a second.
Okay. This is a big story.
Yeah. In your effort to get to know this guy, do you plan to read the police report? It's readily available. You know, many of us have read it. And will you read it with the understanding that in domestic violence cases, often we say a guy was found not responsible or not guilty, it often means the victim chose not to cooperate.
Yeah, I will read it, but to me, the most important thing is getting to know him more than the report, because I've always felt to get the most out of a player and to really understand a player, you have to get to know them and get their heart. And I can't do that from a police report.
But with that said, and how much that is important to you to get to know him, and then also saying it happened so quickly, how comfortable when the trade did happen at that moment were you?
Well, I knew there would be a lot of questions to our organization, to me, to him, and I knew that it would be a story. And it obviously will continue to be a story for a while. But as I said, people have never turned their back on me, no matter who they were. People have stuck their neck out for me when I was a kid, and I've went through difficult times and made mistakes, and never to the extent of a domestic violence issue, but and people were there for me, and I think it's important that I'm there for him.
Take a couple more. We have Tanaka waiting in the wings. Billy?
So one of the things Chapman said, that if he were suspended, he would definitely appeal. And does that to you tell you that either somebody's doesn't think they did, tell you that he doesn't think he did anything wrong?
Well, I think that it tells you that he wants to question the suspension, and in his mind, does it tell me that maybe he thinks he didn't do something wrong? I don't know if it says that. As I've said, I think there's a lot of us in this room that have often said, I wish we could do something a little bit different. If I had 24 hours to think about it, or sometimes 2 hours or 2 weeks, I probably would have did something a little bit different. That would be a question that, that I would probably ask. Today was the first that I'd heard of that.
Brian?
Joe, why was it important for you to name Chapman a closer before camp? How did you make that decision?
Well, I thought that, as I said, he's been a closer most of his career, and it's a position that he has probably been most comfortable in, where Andrew Miller did it last year, did a tremendous job, by the way, just absolutely a tremendous job. Dellin really hasn't done much of it. Andrew had been a reliever most of his career, a setup guy, seventh inning guy, lefty specialist, all those different things. So I thought that it would be easiest to those two would probably adjust to it better than a Chapman would.